Welcome to the SSAA Victoria Podcast. Barring anything significant and completely unexpected happening, this will be the last of our podcasts for 2025. No particular headline topic today, just a run-through of the major events of the year, a particular focus on a lot of stuff that's been happening in this last 6 months of the year, which has been far busier than we expected it to be. So that's our plan, is just reflect on 2025 and perhaps get the crystal ball out and look ahead to 2026. Joining me today to my left, I have David Laird.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Barry and Daryl.
And to my right is Daryl Snowden.
G'day.
All right, gents, a big year. Let's run straight into it with something that never causes any controversy, never causes any angst amongst the hunting or shooting community. Duck season 2025.
So we're going to start with the important stuff.
Yeah, we'll start with ducks.
Hog deer later?
Yeah, well, we'll bury ducks, and then as we get into it and get a roll on, we can get to the important stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, so started off, acknowledge that, the government's commitment to ongoing duck seasons and adaptive harvest management, fantastic. Pretty inauspicious start with a very late bag limit announcement. I think it was one of the latest we've had.
Mid-Feb.
Which caused a lot of angst, and some of it probably somewhat unnecessarily, as we kept reminding people the government set the start date. They've locked it in for how many years?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Yep.
You know you're going to have a season. All of the conditions last year were pointing to it being a very good season, but based on years, I suppose, of this being such a contested issue, people were a bit shaky until they got that bag limit announced. And when it was announced, it was a pretty high bag limit.
Yeah, it was a great result in the end. It's just a pity that we constantly have these pushed back further and further, and it makes it harder for hunters to make the decision on what they're going to do and where they're going to go and how they're going to go about it.
And we've had discussions with government, the three of us, last week about that decision being earlier, as we seem to have every year discussions about that decision being earlier, but very fruitful discussions, and touch wood, I think we'll get a far earlier announcement of the bag limit.
And I think the positive thing, once again, is the fact that we know the start dates. So that's all locked in. So we're good to go with that. It'll just come down to that season bag limit, which, I don't know, anyone want to speculate on what it might be if we want to be controversial? Anyone having any guesses?
6.
I was going to say 6.
5 then.
I'll go 7.
I think with 6. If we're going to do the crystal ball thing, yeah, look, I'd expect it to be slightly reduced from last year. Just looking at, climate drives this stuff. Hunting doesn't drive duck populations, climate does. And if you look at Victoria at the moment, barring some huge rainfalls in December, we're very much below. Most of the states below average, with parts of the state very much below average. Excluding East Gippsland would be the only exclusion there, which is kind of average, and little tiny patches of it would be above average, but 3/4 of the state sort of below average rainfall. Just based on that, I'd predict that, waterfowl populations will be slightly decreased. Birds would have moved interstate, etc. And we can probably expect a slightly smaller bag limit. But that's guesstimation.
The positive thing, though, is it's going to be based on the science. So it's not going to be just a guess. The numbers will come in. They'll put it through all the modelling, and we'll get that number. But once again, I'll just stress the really important thing is we know the start date. So we know we've got a full-length season. So, the bag limit will be what it'll be. But people can start planning now.
And counts are in, and, initial reports are that, there's a lot more dry or wetlands than there was last year based on that rainfall data.
You're still going to have it's almost certain you're going to have a bag that's higher than the long-term average that hunters take. You're going to have a really good reason to go out and hunt. So if that's what's holding you back from putting your leave form in, put your leave form in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of AHM, is those dates are locked in. We know when duck season's going to start and we know when it's going to end. So start planning.
Probably the challenge that we'll still face is the closure process. Oh, I know. Pain of my existence. But look, and we have been working to try and improve that. And we've got some commitments to get a working group up to examine that whole thing. But that's going to be our next challenge, and probably the major one that we've still got ongoing in this whole process.
It's not a closure process anymore, though.
It's management.
It's a yes, I acknowledge that. It's called a wetland management process. The only problem from my perspective is that it usually results immediately in a wetland closure. So yes.
The only management tool that seems to be considered is closing the wetland.
And it's not just David that makes that faux pas. All the people involved in it also call it the same thing until you remind them that it's not actually a closure process.
I'm well aware what it's actually called, but I still continue to call it a closure process. But
we had a curveball in last year's season, which H7 avian influenza came into a zone around Euroa, and in keeping in Darryl's ambition to turn this into a cycling podcast, chapeau to Agriculture Victoria on the way they handled that.
Hello. Yeah, and look, did a really good job. I think we spoke about it on an earlier podcast. I hunt in that area and have friends living in that area, and the fact that they were able to get permits and pretty much go about business as usual. We swapped some campsites around and didn't hunt some areas, but I think that was for the greater good when you look at the possible impacts on agriculture in that area. I think everyone that I spoke to or worked with around or hunted with around there was more than happy to make some changes, but they were all issued with permits so they could travel in and out of the areas, etc. And it went pretty smoothly as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, I think it is a big issue we're potentially going to face. That avian influenza has got into some of the Antarctic islands, so potentially sooner or later it is going to get here.
No, it's a when, it's not an if.
Yeah. So, but look, if government departments handle it like they did that, then we don't have too much to be concerned about. But it will potentially have a big impact. But it's obviously outside pretty much everyone's control. And as long as they go through due process, then it'll be what it'll be.
Right, so another thing we did way back when in February was our second, I think, Parliamentarians Range Day, which pretty well what it says on the wrapper. We had a heap of parliamentarians come to the range and put shotguns and pistols and rifles in their hands and had them do a bit of pew-pew and put some smiles on their faces.
That was this year.
That was this year, a long time ago.
It seems like a long time ago, but look, it was really encouraging to see the people who went there, and some of them have probably particular views on firearms, but they all had a really good time, and it was just great to see those smiles at the end of the day. And I had a couple of them come up and sort of say to me, hey, this is really fun. And we're going, yes, that's why so many people get involved in sort of the shooting sports, because it is a fun activity. So really good to be able to just take them out, and because we can, with our advocacy, we can tell people all those sort of things and we can explain it to bureaucrats and politicians. But at the end of the day, for them to experience it and then go away with those big smiles and have had that genuinely enjoyable experience is a really positive thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Look, I've been involved in them for over 10 years with various associations. But it's great. Some of these people we've never had contact with before. Some of the staffers we've never met before. And then, next time we're in Parliament House, we run into them in the hallways and they stop and, hey, you guys took us shooting. And they always have a good time. And since then, a few other requests for one-on-ones and some other coaching and assistance and how do I get my licence. And, it's been really, really positive.
Yeah, it's not... the goal is not to turn them all into shooters. Everyone should be a shooter because it's great fun. But
we're never going to convert them all.
At least when shooting issues come up, if people can have an understanding of, I know why they do that. It's really enjoyable, rather than why the hell would you do that? We've achieved something.
Yeah, it gives, especially the politicians and the staffers, it gives them an idea what when we're talking about firearms and how we use them. It gives them a good idea what we're talking about, as opposed to what they see in the movies, which is not really what we do.
No, not at all. Well, we don't look as good as John
David
Wick
does.
Also, around that time of year, the government announced that they would add blue tick and black and tan coon hounds to the list of hounds approved for trailing sambar deer.
No, really, really big thing. A couple of us at this table do hunt with hounds, so we're really pleased to see that. But
I've never seen any of those retrieved before.
No, but really kudos to the Victorian hound hunters. They did a great job putting forward a really good case as to why those dogs should be included. And we obviously looked at that and supported them in that, which we were more than happy to do. But they did a great job sort of pushing that and getting that up. And
kudos to Minister Demopoulos for listening. And I was at the VHH Family Day where it was announced, and the Minister had Jeff Borman announce it because Jeff had played a role in the advocacy on that. Obviously a pretty big enough role for the Minister to allow someone from another party to go forward and announce his thing, which was pretty big in and of itself. And it's the first time in 50 years there's been new breeds of hounds approved, and this is a community that's had a lot taken away from them
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for hound hunters. I think each time they hear an announcement, it's never a positive thing or adding anything. It's always taking something away from them. So,
and look, I think that's just a bit indicative of what's been going on sort of across the board with hunting and shooting over the last 12 months. I genuinely think the pendulum is starting to swing back. We can never get complacent, but I think there's been some really positive sort of things happening, and we've certainly noticed a marked change in sort of just general attitudes within government and within the bureaucracies on a whole heap of these sort of issues.
Which segues us, I suppose, into the horrible, horrible people who are trying to change all that for us.
Horrible people.
Is it going too far?
Yeah, probably.
Horrible organisations, is that better? So we've got the Australia Institute, which is a think tank, and the Alana and Madeline Foundation, which is a charity, and their little AstroTurf front organisation, which they call the Australian Gun Safety Alliance, basically operating as an anti-gun block, and they've put out scores of what are masquerading as research papers this year, some of which, we've had to respond to. But they seem to be attempting to leverage every tragedy to advance their agenda, and their agenda is that people like you and I shouldn't have access to firearms.
Correct. Well, it goes even further than that. You look at how they're acting in New South Wales around the New South Wales Conservation Hunting Bill. The hunting bill's watering down the gun laws that were brought in 1996, and it's nothing to do with gun laws.
It's a hunting bill. It's complete nonsense, but they're using that as a platform and running around with this claim that, all the shooters are represented and they're just a small portion of the society, and we represent a silent majority, which is just bull.
Yeah, just not correct at all. Yeah. I mean, when you look at some of them who might have stood for Parliament in the past and looked at the results they got, I think that clearly showed that they did not speak for the silent majority in any way, shape or form.
Well, that's their patron, who it's a bit of a sacred cow. But Walter Micak stood for Parliament in 2018. He got less than 1% of the vote. If that's the silent majority, I hope these people aren't acting as anyone's accountants.
Oh, dear, very, very.
And the thing on that is, and members would have seen it and the public would have seen it, SSAA Victoria has played a really major role in a coordinated and evidence-led pushback on that agenda, and we don't like to be on the back foot, but we really do have to. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and we've got to be vigilant against these attacks because we can't allow it to go unanswered. We can't allow people who make decisions to accept that as the truth, what these people are saying, because it's patent nonsense.
Yeah, and I think that evidence is the key term there. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's great. They have a particular worldview, but to try and justify that by putting out sort of intellectually dishonest at best sort of material is just not acceptable, and that's where we've spent a whole heap of time. And Baz in particular, kudos to Baz for rebutting a lot of those sort of statements that they've put out and getting that evidence and being able to put that before our decision makers and completely discrediting a whole heap of what they've said.
Well, the beauty of that is it's not hard to completely discredit a whole heap of what they've said, but we can't take that for granted either. We have to look at everything they bowl up on merit. All right, keeping on rolling through the year, a lot of discussion this year about public land and public land access, not just for shooting and hunting, for all sorts of users. In May, Melina Barth MP tabled a record-breaking petition, so the biggest petition in Victorian history, or since suffrage anyway, and it was about no new national parks effectively, which the government had already committed to saying there would be no new national parks, but it was a bigger push, and she brought together a really wide range of bush user groups to come into Parliament and listen to the debate, so we were happy to join with her and come along with that. It was good to be with prospectors and mountain cattlemen and all sorts of very diverse range of people who use the bush.
Yeah, I think that was a really good initiative by Melina, and she's certainly been supportive of that public land access, which is obviously a key issue for us and for our members and hunters and shooters more generally. So, yeah, good result.
And we'll talk a bit more about national parks later because, like I said, it did feature pretty heavily throughout the year.
It still is.
Yes.
Another thing that's featuring pretty heavily is this animal rights agenda against fur. And in May, that came to a head when Adidas made a global decision to abandon kangaroo leather due to pressure from animal rights people. And again, we talk about basing decisions on evidence and facts. And
so it's better to put those in a hole and make shoes out of them?
Well, that's the point. These are animals that are going to die. These are animals that will die anyway. All you're doing is driving the industry to be more marginal, which arguably results in worse animal welfare outcomes, certainly less scrutiny and oversight on how those animals are taken, because
you're removing any value from the
take the value
resource.
out. They're not going into processing facilities where they're inspected and where there's expectations of clean headshots and all of that sort of stuff. And we also highlighted the hypocrisy of Adidas, and the animal rights movement, who are fawning over a company that this isn't us saying it. This is several international organisations saying that they stitch up their shoes in sweatshop conditions. But hey, aren't they a wonderful company because they're letting kangaroo skins go to rot?
Virtue signalling on the kangaroo issue, and human rights issues on the other side.
I don't think there's ever been a kangaroo harvested in Victoria that's been harvested to make shoes out of. They're being harvested for shot, for other control reasons, or to be going to the pet food market or various other things. They're not. The skins are just there. Yeah. It's absolute crazy not to use them for something.
And it's more of a concern in Victoria. In the last week, we've had some discussion with some people, and it's been up on social media that there's very quietly been working a government fur policy review task force, which is co-chaired by Georgie Purcell from the Animal Justice Party. And good on Georgie. She's doing exactly what you would expect an Animal Justice Party member of Parliament to do. More concerning for us is that her co-chair is someone well known to hunters, and that's government backbencher Ryan Batchelor.
Yes, we've dealt with Mr. Batchelor in the past.
We do. We've even got a nickname for him. Rhymes with his first name.
I've sat opposite a table a few times for him.
So Ryan Batchelor chaired the duck hunting inquiry under the premise that he was very happy to put out there that he was a very professional and impartial chair who didn't have a dog in the fight, only to later well and truly out himself and his true agenda, and he seems to be continuing to show his true colours with this.
Yeah, well, he was influenced by his daughter who liked seeing ducks at the park, is my recollection of the whole thing, and because they were cute and wonderful, why should anyone go and hunt them?
I like seeing ducks at the park too.
So do I, and I like seeing them in a confit.
Not how we should be making decisions on sustainable sort of harvest and hunting issues.
Oh, Barry.
Middle of the year, we had, again, giving pats on the back to the government left, right and centre. Not for this one, the machete ban. Just
don't start on bins.
Just we're not going to. The bin things. Yeah, it's a good sideshow, but that wasn't our issue with the machete ban. We had pretty strong assurances, and there were assurances given in Parliament that there'd be exemptions for hunters, and they didn't eventuate. And the exemptions that were granted, so this cultural use exemption and an exemption for collectors, were very, very painfully drafted. I've got some relevant education and expertise in this field, and I struggled to...
Don't be bashful, Baz. You've got a law degree.
Right, yeah, so. and I struggled to understand what these exemptions meant. They were incredibly poorly drafted to the point where they've had to come back a couple of times and put out explanations about what their drafting meant.
And I haven't got a law degree, and you tried to explain it to me, and I was very, very confused as well. And I think pretty much everybody out there would be. Quite ridiculous. And we've got shooters, licensed firearms users. We've been declared fit and proper people. We've had those police checks, and people have access to firearms, and then suddenly you can't have a machete for when you go up the bush hunting or doing something like that. It seemed absolutely stupid.
And as a last resort sort of exemption, we put it in there to put it in that category that you've got to be licensed, that you even have to be a member of one of the associations. You can only use them in conjunction with your game licence. You must keep them under lock and key, all of that. And
you mean like a crossbow?
Like a crossbow, exactly the same sort of exemption.
I can have a crossbow, but I can't have a machete.
And it fell on deaf ears. And there's a reason why people have machetes. There's a reason why I used to have one at home. They're the best tool for the job. Well, they're just really good
There's a
things.
reason-
If you're clearing a lot of
there's a reason
scrub and
why they make
blackberries.
them, Barry.
Genuine, legitimate users for these things, and people are using them the wrong way. So, let's ban the machete. Let's not look at all the other issues. It's, at least you seem to be doing something, I suppose.
I suppose our takeaway from that is, look, we don't win every battle we glove up for, but we glove up for them all. And we don't always pretend to win every battle we glove up for either. We're not happy to tell you when we lose, but we're happy to front up and say, hey, look, we tried and we lost and we didn't. Did we not do well enough? Did we not try hard enough? I don't know. But we certainly put the work in and put the strongest possible case forward, and sometimes that doesn't
get you where you want to be
the result we
for
want.
Various reasons. But we certainly gave it a good crack in evidence-based submissions. So that's what we can do.
Another evidence-based thing that continues to boggle the mind as to why it's not allowed is silencers. And I think last time we spoke about these, we save the hate mail, you can call them suppressors, you can call them moderators, you can call them a shush, you can call them whatever you want. We're calling them silencers. So
Call them a can.
Well, silencers because that's what they're referred to in the legislation. That's what we're doing.
that's what the fellow who invented them called them.
For marketing purposes. So, no exaggeration in marketing ever. So,
So back in June, there was the UK government made moves to deregulate silencers. Again, Jeff Borman put up a bit of a question to the minister. Would he have another look at them, which he indicated that he kind of might. So that's now sitting with a committee to see if they kind of do.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to see where the hurdles are. I've heard lots of arguments for and against, and one of the crazy arguments against is that we can't register them. And I don't quite understand how that works, because under the system that it now works on, when people are permitted to have them, which are generally professional shooters, is about the only level at the moment where you can have them. They are registered. There's a reporting process. There's a serial number. So I don't quite understand why there's
only
some belief that you can't have a serial number.
One or two manufacturers in Australia.
Oh, there's a handful.
And they all put serial numbers on them when they manufacture them.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, they are a metal tube.
Yeah.
So, that was another good thing about the Parliamentary Range Day. We actually got to demonstrate silencers to some of the politicians there. And I think that was a bit of an eye-opener, because I think a lot of them probably had a preconceived idea of what they are and what they do, and sort of this Assassin's Creed sort of stuff running around going psh, psh, psh. And when we actually demonstrated them, I think that gave them a much more realistic understanding of what they do. So,
And someone asked me the other day, and I can't think of a jurisdiction anywhere where they've been banned to the point where they have been here. In the US, there is a bit of a process, yes. New Zealand, there's no regulation at all. There's a little bit in the UK. In Europe, it's the opposite way around. You can't hunt on public land without a moderator of some description. Yeah. To the point where I was in France. I'll just drop it in the conversation.
You were in France.
I was in France the other day. I was in France recently in the Alps doing some other things, but where hunters would just park in a public car park and get out of their car with their blaze orange camo on them, with their high-powered centerfire rifle with the big long suppressor on the end of it, and no one bats an eyelid. Yeah. It's just normal.
All right. Well, you've dropped that you went to France. I'll drop that I'm planning on going to the UK next year, and I've been making some inquiries about getting a stalk in for red deer in the Scottish Highlands whilst I'm there. And all the estates I've contacted so far, one of their requirements is that you have to have a silencer on the firearm they're using on their estate.
Yeah, it's frowned upon in New Zealand as well if you don't use one. And like I said, in Europe, it's mandatory.
Anyway, we will continue to try and progress that and make people see some common sense and find a way forward on this one. But it's not going to happen overnight. But, it is something we're continuing to work on.
All right, at the risk of turning this into a travel log, we'll move on from silencers. What's that show? Getaway or postcards?
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll drop some more in later.
Circling back, I suppose, to ducks. So after duck season in June, we had, I think, 2 in 1 week reports out of various magistrates' courts, one up in Kerrang and one in the Latrobe Valley, of magistrates giving what we'd say are just pathetic penalties to people who had been found guilty or pleaded guilty to interfering with hunters, to anti-duck hunting activists who had been found guilty, broken the law. The courts acknowledged they've broken the law and have basically, in my view, said, you've been very naughty, now go out and do that again. So we've renewed calls to close loopholes in public safety laws, and the regulator's been strong on this too. It's certainly not GMA's fault, and they're doing what they can to address what happens. They go to the effort of booking these people, and it sort of falls down when it hits the courts.
Yeah, I think we could probably see some change coming. The people that run the prosecutions are changing, so the department that actually runs the prosecutions are changing. They've reached out to us for some assistance with training, etc., so they have a thorough understanding of hunting and firearms. So I think we can hopefully see some changes on how the prosecutions themselves are run, and hopefully that follows on to the prosecutions and how they're.
Yeah, and ultimately, though, it comes down to magistrates imposing the penalties that they can for this. So that'll probably be the challenging part.
It will, but if they're being led by a prosecutor who puts that case in a better way, it does hold out hope that you're going to get better results. It stands to reason that you should.
Time will tell, I guess, on that one.
That's right.
Yep. Fingers crossed.
Well, the activists might just shut up shop and not harass hunters anymore, and it won't be a problem.
That ideal world thing again. Are we doing that again?
You reckon I'm aspirational.
And look, beyond that, there still needs to be, from the government, in my view, a closing of that loophole. So those public safety laws were brought in to keep people off the wetlands, not to encourage them to go and get licences and work a way around the letter of the law. And these people are clearly working around the letter of the law by getting licences, and it's a loophole, and good government should close loopholes like that where they exist.
Yeah, and let's be realistic. They're not saving ducks, although they're always out there rescuing ducks. Ducks don't get rescued, so they're actively protesting, and no one, around this table is going to deny their right to protest. It's just a time and a place to do it. You're not allowed to go in the middle of the MCG during the grand final and protest, and I don't think you should be allowed to go in a duck swamp while people are actively hunting and protest. There's a time and a place. Yeah,
you've got the right to express your opinion. What you don't have is the right to disrupt my lawful activity whilst you're expressing your opinion. It doesn't matter how righteous you think you are, the law of the land ought to apply equally.
Yep. I think we're all in agreement with that one.
I think so.
Very much so. And that's one of the things we sort of discussed at a meeting we had in June at Eagle Park. So we convened a statewide meeting of shooting and hunting leaders, and had a good spread of people from across shooting and hunting, and taking shooting pretty broadly. We included Bow Hunting Association in shooting.
It was good to have them on board.
It's great, and they are shooters, and they need to be in the tent and in this with all of us. And from that, we secured an agreement on a bit of a joint strategic approach. So this time next year, when we're all sitting in this studio or wherever we're sitting, we'll be talking
post-election.
We'll be talking about the re-elected government or the new government, or hopefully not the hung parliament. But the election will have been run and won, and we'll probably know who's running the state for the next 4 years this time next year.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of this election strategy was to go out so that we can go to all major parties and put sort of almost a log of claims as to what we want, and then hopefully we can get sort of that bipartisan support for those sort of issues that we want. So regardless of who ends up in Parliament after that election, hopefully hunting and shooting will sort of come out of it pretty well.
Yeah, it's a united voice, and constantly working with governments. They're sick of hearing from 22,000 different stakeholder groups, and if you can come with one voice, you've got a lot more sway. So,
Look, and I know our members and shooters and hunters more broadly keep asking for us to all speak with one voice, and this is a really good initiative for us, all the major organisations and some of the smaller ones, to get together and discuss these things and come to that sort of joint agreement on what we're going to ask for.
And I guess the difference is it's the three big dogs have always sort of played together. Well, generally, not always. We've had a few fights along the journey, but generally work together on these things. But to bring in the smaller organisations and have one big umbrella's the major change there. And to
put forward some ideas that are meaningful, that governments can do, that aren't going to cost the world and that they can do, but will actually make a meaningful difference.
Yeah, there was stuff there that we don't even think about because it doesn't really affect us, and we didn't really think about some of the issues, and some of them are no-brainers in my mind.
But I think that's the important point, that everything that we're going to put up is achievable. So it's not an ambit claim that we're striving for the moon. Everything that we're asking for can be done and
silencers
can be done
on there?
fairly easy. The silencers on there?
The silencers are not on there.
No.
Semi-automatics are not on there.
so
none of that.
achievable
We did
things.
say achievable.
Carp fishing.
Bow hunting for carp.
Bow hunting for carp
Bow
is
hunting
on
for
there.
carp is on there because that's an initiative that, there's no reason why it shouldn't occur.
It occurs in New South Wales. I'm watching some Instagram reels of someone on Lake Mulwala, which happens to be technically in New South Wales,
long as you're in
bow
the right
fishing
part-
carp
the
the
right
other
part
day. A big thing that happened, a major win with some serious caveats, was in July. Minister Dimopoulos announced that deer stalking access would be allowed in the Snowy and Erranundra National Parks. So it's a major milestone after decades. We've spoken about that on this podcast previously, about the push for that. So it was fantastic to see it. And look, it was really welcome, but one of the caveats, and I want to preface this with, it is incredibly positive, and the government, certainly in the last 2 years, have been incredibly positive towards hunting and shooting, and I don't think anyone should take anything away from that. But part of the rationale the government used to grant that access was this trope that deer are a problem and that the mere presence of recreational hunting is a panacea. And look, that's superficially attractive, I suppose. It gets more access, but it takes our conversation away from that evidence base that we were talking about earlier, and moves it into the area of jingles, which is where people like the Invasive Species Council operate. It moves it from being our conversation to their conversation, and they have to operate there. It's the only place they can stand. They haven't got any subject matter expertise or anything to really bring to the conversation other than rent seeking, grant applications and division and culture war. We have got stuff to bring. We do deeply understand these issues. We know the nuance. And like I said, it's great that at the moment for hunting and shooting in Victoria, the tide is in and the pendulum's swung in our direction. But we need to work, certainly as SSAA Victoria, as people who have been around for 74 years, representing shooters and hunters in this state.
Not personally. But.
Not personal. Combined, the three of us nearly make up 74 years between the three of us.
I think we'd get there.
Just a little bit to
As
spare.
an organisation.
As an organisation. So, tides go back out and pendulums swing back. And it's not going to happen next year, and it might not happen in 5 years. Or it might happen next year if the Greens hold balance of power in the Victorian Parliament. Who knows what happens next year? And might not happen in 5 years, but it's going to swing back. The Victorian National Parks Association is still going to exist. The Invasive Species Council is still going to exist. They're still going to be well funded. They're still going to be arguing against our interests, and they're going to get a foothold again with government at some stage, like they have done in the past. And we have to still be there, and we still have to be able to prosecute that conversation about not just deer management, about firearms, about everything from that really solid foundation when that does happen.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the access is absolutely fantastic, and we keep pushing for access to enable sort of our members and hunters more broadly to go and hunt animals. But recreational hunting, whilst it can have a significant impact on overall deer numbers and is part of an overall management strategy, it's not going to control sort of numbers where deer are having those negative impacts in all circumstances. And to try and argue that, I think would be intellectually dishonest and would eventually punt us into that corner where if we're only justifying getting access because deer are a problem or we're dealing with pest species, when they're not a problem or they're not a pest species, then what's our justification for going there? I mean, recreational hunting is valuable in its own right. It has those social and recreational values. It provides food and all those other things. So we've got to be careful that we don't sort of fall into that trap, easy though it may be and convenient at the moment, that we just go down that pest species and saying, hey, we're going to solve all your issues where we're having negative impacts.
Well, we want access to public land because hunting is a legitimate use of public land, full stop. Where there's no good reason for us not to have access, we should have access, just the same as where there's no good reason for a mountain biker or a horse rider or a settle Darryl. We're not picking on mountain bikers. Second reference though, it is becoming a cycling podcast.
Yeah. Working on it.
So that's our reason for access, not this this trope that, deer are a problem, therefore we kill them. Like I said, the other side, they can do that. They don't have to deal in facts. They've got a culturally sympathetic media, a culturally sympathetic body politic for the most part. People don't scrutinise what they say. They don't have to deal in facts. We do. It's the only way we can survive long term is to be the subject matter experts and to be credible. And I just think if we buy into those tropes and that sloganeering, it's the road to ruin.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And while deer hunting, isn't the recreational deer hunting is not the answer to deer control, it's part of it.
It's a very big part of it.
Recreational hunters are taking a lot more deer than anyone else, as opposed to what the Greens seem to believe. And I think, what did I read today? The Greens support professional deer control efforts to bring down deer numbers rather than amateur hunters who have been shown to not make a dent in deer populations. Well, I'd argue that it makes a fairly big dent.
Makes a big dent.
That's a great example of these people don't get scrutinised for what they say. Here's the unfair bit. We have to deal in facts and they don't. But that's the point, is that we can't throw away the nuance in this discussion. And we have to front up to the negatives in our arguments too. And we have to front up to the fact that, yes, recreational hunting is not the panacea.
No.
But here's where it can be part of the
puzzle. And you guys know the numbers better than I do on how many deer are harvested by amateurs. There, now I'm saying it, by recreational hunters.
Yeah.
Sorry, I work in deer control, so make a fist.
And we are in Collingwood. We are inside the Ghost Trees curtain, so it's affecting us all.
I know the numbers that get taken professionally, and it's nowhere near the number that recreational hunters take. So they play a huge role in it.
Yeah. And this is why we keep pushing for an overall deer management strategy in this state, which we were originally promised in the original SHAP. We ended up with a deer control strategy, which is not the same thing. And I think there's certainly a place for control operations.
Control's part of the management.
We're involved in them
not the same
through
thing.
Our CPM program. But recreational hunting has a big part to play. And if you look at an overall management strategy that maximises the benefits that are available to us for deer hunting and minimises the negative impacts of deer where they are occurring, then we're going to be a whole lot better off.
So the good news is, well, in part, the legislation did pass in November. Hunters will be in the Snowy and the Errinundra next year, not this time next year. The season will have closed by then, I believe, but next year they'll be in there. Quite regrettably, when we were asked by the government and asked by the opposition our views, SSAA Victoria opposed the bill that brought in hunting in the Snowy and Errinundra. And we did that because it also, in the same bill, they created these new national parks in the central west of Victoria. So those new national parks are locking out pest animal hunters. They're locking out people who hunt deer with dogs. They're restricting wider recreational users. And they're doing it, it's not that we take a dogmatic approach to no national parks or an ideological approach. They're doing it based off a VAC report that was predicated on these places are at risk and need to be protected and locked up into national parks predominantly to protect them from native timber harvesting. Subsequent to that report, the government banned native timber harvesting. So what are you protecting this land from?
And that's a big question, isn't it? The whole thing. And we put in a submission at the time when the VAC investigation was going on and raised all those points. And the fact that there were sort of so many positive environmental values in so many of those state forests after they've been managed as a state forest for 150 years would indicate that that management program was actually successful. And particularly now that logging isn't an issue, why would you then have to restrict further access to those areas?
Yet VAC recommended national parks everywhere because that's all VAC throughout its life has ever recommended, and sought to remove deer hunting entirely on the lumped us in with industrial uses of the forests and sought to remove us entirely. I mean, the question we just asked, what are you protecting it from? Given that the government's openly stated there'll be no new national parks, you'd have to question what's the point of VAC anymore? Why does it exist?
Yep. There might be some cost-cutting savings to be made by getting rid of that body.
That's a good place to
start.
Good place to start slashing if you're going to slash. Now, again, chapeau to the government. Back in 2019, and I think it's fair to say a far less friendly Minister for the Environment than the one we've got now. David led a bit of a delegation after that VAC report came in to argue that, hey, if we're if we're going to make these national parks, which we say we shouldn't, we should have deer hunting in it. And to their credit, they listened.
Yeah, no, they did, which was positive and gave us that commitment. And that's partially been delivered under this new bill. Unfortunately, they've taken one of the areas out, and based on some safety concerns, though how legitimate they are is very, very questionable. And look, we don't say that hunting should occur everywhere in all circumstances, because clearly it's not safe in some situations, it's not appropriate in others for various reasons. But in this case, it seems to be just an arbitrary decision based on a bit of lobbying that's not evidence-based. And we're very keen to have evidence-based decisions in all of these things.
Yeah. I think we've probably done that to death. We talk about it.
I want to jump in a few more quotes, but I won't.
Go on, load up, Darren.
I've just been reading about it today, and the Greens calling for the closure of that national park in particular to keep the kids in the community safe from deer hunters and protect our beautiful natural areas.
Which is just...
I love some of the quotes.
Over a century of public land deer hunting in this state, it's completely compatible with other uses. I'm involved in a hunter education course as a volunteer that operates out of a school camp, which has a state forest abutting it on three sides and people running hounds in there, and it's just not an issue. And we don't mind, like Dave said, we don't mind dealing with safety issues where they're real, but to have a backflip on opening up some public land to deer hunting on the perception of public safety is a bit... It's disappointing.
And these areas were state forest, and they were open to just basically unrestricted
All
hunting. So you could hunt
uses,
deer, but you could hunt pest species in there as well. So there was no sort of limitations. And now all of a sudden they're national parks and there's this big safety issue. So no.
These attacks are not going to completely go away. The government's made it really clear, and that's fantastic, that national parks are not on their agenda. They don't want to create any new national parks. I think it's pretty safe to say the opposition, particularly with the National Party involved, are not keen on creating new national parks. So very unlikely to be on the agenda, barring we got garlic or a cross or something, barring a hung parliament with the Greens next year. Are they scared of garlic, Greens?
I don't know that they are.
I'll have to find some holy water. I can't throw craft beer at them or they'll come running.
So would Daryl.
That's true.
Sign me up.
It's going to be, in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, there'll be people pushing and getting a sympathetic ear on national parks. There'll be people pushing against duck hunting. There'll be people pushing against hound hunting. They're not going to go away. We need to keep sharpening the axe for when that day comes, but we also need to be doing whatever we can to make these activities better, make sure that we're in the best shape we can be in so that we can defend them when that time does come.
Yeah, and that's our job as an organisation, to remain vigilant and keep an eye on those things.
Of course it is. And it's up to all of us as hunters and shooters not to give them that ammunition to fire back at us. So.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Fair bit of other stuff happening around traps, or has happened around the traps, particularly the last few months, whilst David's been in the country and not travelling around overseas. The show did go on.
Well, I've been in the French Alps.
I haven't been overseas. I'm planning on going overseas. So.
That's good. Good on you for holding the fort, David.
Somebody has to.
That's right. September, we had a really positive public land outcome at Beep. I'm saying Beep because we won't name
the actual spot. It was in the northeast. We can certainly say that. Look, it's a really good outcome, but it's really frustrating that it's literally taken 5 years to get it there. This was first brought up in 2020. There was a change of ownership of some private property, and there was some licensed grazing land that was associated with it that went back up into state forest. And the new owner of the private property and the licence holder decided to put gates up, lock it, no hunting access, and a whole heap of other things. So it was really clear very early on that that wasn't appropriate. Everybody agreed with that, but we got the bureaucratic runaround, went through a whole heap of departments, and it's taken 5 years, but finally we got that resolution, and that gate is gone. That area is opened back up again. So we had another one that fortunately only took a few months. Once again, dealing with licensed land, and that was sort of up in East Gippsland. Once again, I won't name exactly where it is, but once again, a licence holder put up a gate, put up signs saying that there was no hunting, and that was brought to our attention, and that one was resolved fairly quickly. So the moral of the story is if anybody is hunting particular areas and finds an area has been shut down that they think shouldn't have been, please let us know and we'll look into it. The More to Explore app is a really good first reference point because that gives a good understanding of what the land tenure is, and generally speaking, if it's only licensed, you're allowed to be in there and go deer stalking.
And look, I was at a forum a month or 6 weeks ago with other recreational users and the minister, the outdoor rec minister. So these issues are not unique to hunting. Recreational fishers are facing, particularly with the changes to access to licensed Crown land that happened for rec fishing. It's a big issue for recreational fishing, these sorts of unauthorised lockouts. So the minister's very aware of it. So we're hopeful that he'll put some mechanisms in place to address it, so that the issues will still come up, but so it doesn't take us 5 years to get through them.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. And as we've talked about, the pendulum seems to have been sort of swinging back on some of these things. There seems to be more will to get them resolved. So, no, really good.
October, I organised, booked the association in for a display at the Wild Deer Expo and organised some good material to be displayed at Wild Deer, which was a great sort of regional expo that's held in the off year from the big Metro Shot Expo.
And then what did you do?
I really appreciated the people from the office that went and manned the expo is what I then did, Darryl.
Whilst you were doing what?
Whilst I was eating my way through Vietnam.
With the occasional beer, I think, thrown in as well. But no, look, it was a really, really good expo, well run again, and good opportunity for us to go and just fly the SSAA Victoria flag. We partnered up with the SSAA Deer Stalkers Club this year, so gave them an opportunity to showcase their club and talk to people about sort of what they offer. So I'm not sure exactly how many people went through, but I think it was quite a lot, and good opportunity. Darryl was there with me.
Yeah, we flew the flag.
We worked hard, so but no, really enjoyable sort of weekend. Talking to people about deer hunting, talking about the association, talking about training sort of stuff that SSAA offers that can sort of benefit them. So good weekend.
It was a bit of a shock to the system. One day I was in Paris, and the next day I was in Warragul. So it was a bit of a shock to the system. But look, it's always good to go to those things and catch up with the industry people that we see at all these things that we don't get to see all the time. But the other associations represented, it was good to see some of those. But of course, our members just constantly coming into the stand and saying good day.
I've never been to Paris, but I live in Warragul.
Warragul's the Paris of Gippsland, though, isn't it, Barry?
It certainly is the Paris of Gippsland, Darryl.
You did book us a very nice accommodation, so I thank you for that.
A French name too, Mercure.
But next time, can we have carpet on the stand? It was hard on the feet, mate.
So harden up. The duck hunters used to stand it in sort of.
I'm looking after our members' money, Darryl.
No, it was great. It was a good weekend. I think it's really well attended.
And back on the minister, Mr. Demopoulos did, I think off his own bat, he did Outdoors October, so made an announcement every day in October, which was really cool. It was great to see a government minister really leaning in to outdoor recreation. There was some excellent mountain biking.
Mount Buller. Day 4.
Yeah, and some trail steward sort of mountain biking initiatives that are really exciting, like reimagining how users use public land and how they contribute to the management of public land, which was really exciting. But again, we're not turning this into a cycling podcast. One of those announcements was $1 million for deer hunter-focused huts.
Yeah, no, really, really good initiative. This has been around for a while, but it came out of the minister's office, which is really encouraging. So we've already been talking to various sort of stakeholders on the whole thing, Parks Victoria and the Minister's Office, on where this can potentially go. Probably now it's a great initiative, but $1 million can disappear pretty quick smart if it gets swallowed up in feasibility studies and all the rest of it. So we've been talking about sort of practical ways that we can actually get huts constructed and onto the ground. I went on a bit of a trip up to Lacola, spent a couple of days up there with the Area Chief Ranger from PV, looked at various issues on the ground, including huts, amongst other things.
Including the samba that you put on the ground?
That was after. That was in my days off afterwards. But yes, I got the opportunity to have a hunt and shot a samba hide and filled the freezer, so that was very nice. But just looking at some options for the huts, and we've been talking to other people about that as well. So hopefully we can actually see some huts on the ground before too much longer on that.
Huts on the ground and samba on the ground.
I like
That's
that.
what we want in our parks.
Everything's on the ground.
Also in October, Luba Gregorovic, who's the Parliamentary Secretary for Outdoor Recreation, came along to SSAA Springvale Range to draw the Victorian Hog Deer ballot, the Blonde Bay ballot, which is an initiative run by the Blonde Bay Hog Deer Advisory Group, which Dave and I are wearing different hats are both involved in, along with a really good, diverse group of
to weave hog deer in there somewhere, didn't you? I knew you'd get it in there.
Oh, and we save it to the end bit where it's more important, Daryl. Luba did a fantastic job, far better than the sucker who normally...
Come on, Barry, you normally do
who normally hosts that and announces the various surnames. She did a great job.
She did a very, very good job. So,
probably offended a lot less people than I normally do. So, and was very complimentary of our facility at Springvale. So again, great to have people from the government roll their sleeves up and come out and see what we're doing and appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it was valuable for her too, just to see who was on the range, sort of the demographics we're getting through Springvale. And it was a good opportunity too to just have a bit of a chat to her about some of those other issues that as an organisation we sort of want to advocate on behalf of our members. So, really, really good that she came out.
Also in October, the government announced its, some would say, long-awaited response to the Wildlife Act review.
It's been going on a few years, isn't it?
It's been going on for several years, and in doing so rejected two proposals from that review, one of which was to make duck hunting a political football once again, force the minister to make an annual decision on whether it happens or not, and the other was to declare deer a pest, which is, our friends at the Invasive Species Council will tell you that if you call something a different name, suddenly you're managing it. So the government, to their credit, rejected both of those things. Long history with this panel. We did consultation with them years ago. It was initially announced as an independent panel, and I think the problem that the bureaucrats who were overseeing it for the government it was an independent panel.
Yes.
The people who were running it, the chair and another panel member from New Zealand were fantastic. They had Ari Freiberg from Monash University, who's a very independent thinker, and very quietly, about halfway through that process, the names of almost all of the panel members changed on the website, and what we ended up with was a panel far more aligned with the thinking of the department of the day, which was, just unfortunate that all of those really good independent people had to resign and spend more time with their families.
It really was, because it was a good opportunity to review the whole act. It's been there for a long time.
1975.
So it would have been a really good opportunity, and unfortunately it wasn't taken for those various reasons. I engaged very early on behalf of SSAA on that and spoke to the panel in those early days.
The independent panel.
The independent panel. And then over time started dealing with the independent panel, the second iteration or third iteration,
less independent panel.
It was a completely different sort of mindset.
There was one member left of the panel who commenced it, and that was Jack Pascoe, who was there ostensibly representing traditional owner interests, I suppose, and he's expressed a clear bias against duck hunting and a clear bias against wild deer and wild deer management. Like this is stuff that's on the public record and right out there, and why anyone thought it was appropriate to put that bloke on that panel in the first place, let alone to leave him there as the only one that didn't quietly get shanghaied, is beyond me. But anyway, it got the result it deserved.
Yeah, no, and that's a positive result for us. Would have been nice if they'd sort of set the panel up. Well, they did set it up properly in the initial stages. If they'd left it that way, it might have made it much better and much better outcomes. But at the end of the day, for hunters, the outcome that we've achieved is a positive thing.
We're going to Christmas and take the win, eh?
Yep.
Also in October, just a couple of weeks ago, we had our third Hunters for the Hungry barbecue on the rooftop terrace at Parliament House, and I think it was another huge success.
Oh, absolutely. No, really, really good day, really positive. Took one for the team. I think it's the only hot day we've had in the lead up to summer out there on the terrace. Yeah.
You took one for the team.
I took one for the team, been a bit follically challenged.
David got a sunburned head.
I got a sunburned head, but yeah, it was worth it. It was really good day. Food was outstanding, but the response from the parliamentarians and their staffers, really, really good. And Jack Wegman, the CEO, gave a speech, had the opportunity to give a speech in front of the Agriculture Minister and the Premier and everyone else who was there. And I think he did an outstanding job, and I'm not sucking up to him, in nailing sort of the issue and really sort of putting everyone on the spot there to understand what the issues are and what can be done to sort of achieve some really good outcomes.
Yeah, the first couple we've sort of just been very low-key and said, hey, here's the game meat, and we've got this idea called Hunters for the Hungry. This time, Jack made the point and made it very strongly. We also were really lucky to have some people from food charities and a processor join us, so it was great. I'll sound like I'm name dropping here, and I'm not, but I was there talking to the Premier about it, and she said, oh, yeah, but what about the charity bit? How does that work? And I was able to say, Premier Meat.
Yeah, that's right.
I won't name them, but such and such from the food charity. Here's their perspective. Talk to them. And she's, oh, how would the processing work? Premier, meet this gentleman who's a processor. And to be able to put all those pieces together in the one place, I think was really powerful. So hopefully we get some momentum out of it.
Yeah, when we started, we were essentially exposing some of these people to game food. And to get to the point now where not just we get a few staffers turn up and some people might walk past and we're a bit excited because we might see a minister walk past. Now we have the Agriculture Minister, we have the Outdoor Rec Minister, we have the Premier, we have processors, we have food charities all attending the event. It speaks volumes that we're making some progress and we're actually getting some traction with this stuff.
And it's a really, listeners will be familiar, and we had that conversation with Steve from Hunters for Hope earlier in the year. Food insecurity is a huge issue in Victoria, and it's a huge issue that is largely hidden. We see homelessness on the street and think that's what we're looking at when we talk about food insecurity, but we're talking about working families who are making a choice between paying the utility bill and putting decent food. They might be putting food in their family's mouths, but it might be 2-minute noodles. And if you're a child who's developing, you need good, nutritious food. And I think it's something like 1 in 5 Victorian families are not getting enough of it. It's a real issue.
Yep. And I mean, we're not going to be able to solve all of the problems, but I think this program can certainly start addressing that. And we're shooting a lot of deer in control programs and even recreational hunters shooting sort of more than they need. And if we can actually utilise that and get it to those people who need it, it's an absolute no-brainer. We just need that sort of some of the regulations on some of the food handling through Prime Safe and things like that. We just need a bit of that tidied up to allow this to happen, and there's no reason why it can't.
Yeah, and speaking with the food charities, the biggest issue is red meat. They can get vegetables, they can get fruit, they can get bread, they can get chickens, for instance. They have no shortage of chicken. They just have a real problem getting red meat, and especially with the demographic they're supplying food to now, they're calling out they really want red meat.
If you're looking at
goat's high on the agenda and deer's right behind. So if we can get those two things that we are harvesting a lot of into the food charities, it's a win-win. You
look at the development of adolescents in particular, iron deficiencies in women and all of those things. Red meat's a really important bit of nutrition beyond just getting you can get you can get protein out of chicken, but you can't get all of those nutrients that are in red meat.
Yeah. And I think we've really taken that next step this year by having those charities there,
Yeah,
because it's not just us as hunters saying, "Hey, we can solve this problem." They're actually there saying,
We've got the supply chain.
We can do this. So, no, really positive stuff out of that day.
Another big day we had just on Sunday, so a couple of days ago. One day out from summer, so timed to take advantage of the glorious Victorian weather.
It's far from summer.
Yeah. We had 85 ladies show up to Eagle Park for our Women on Target event. So over 2 sessions where they shot rifles and shotguns and handguns and
stuff.
It
was awesome.
How'd it go?
No, it was the best day ever. Yeah, we had a ball. So absolute ball. So when we got to come along and got an introduction, one-on-one instruction, 9mm handguns, 22s, practical rifle, centerfire rifles, and Clay Togler's shotguns.
No one had any trouble with heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have to take one for the team that day.
In between the hail and the rain and the windstorms. But yeah, look, we had to stop a couple of times due to weather, but all our rangers are undercover there. We've got a fabulous training centre facility that we can use as well. So look, it was a fabulous day, and there was just smiles all around. You've never heard so much yahooing and smiles, and it was awesome.
It's pretty handy shooting.
There's some good shooting.
Oh, yes.
You nervous, Barry?
Oh, my niece went and was told by several instructors that she's a better shot than me, and I have to admit she is.
There was some very good shooting.
She's now, you've got one of those in the safe, haven't you? And I said, yeah, go and get your licence. And so yeah, it's hopefully converting more people into shooters, and women's a demographic that we struggle with in the shooting sports, and
51% of the population. We probably need to be a bit better at catering for them,
because it's such an inclusive sport that's when anyone tries it, they enjoy it.
Yeah, and just looking at the age group there, we had teenagers there, and we had some grandmothers there. I would suggest that, they were certainly in their 70s and all having a great time together, and it was really good fun.
Yeah, the blokes better watch out though, because women do tend to shoot very well, and with a lot of the training we do for new shooters, and we get sort of couples will come along, and there's been some very bruised egos when the women shoot better than the guys.
So David's nervous too now. I did notice his wife was there.
My wife was there.
Was taking some fairly good coaching.
And she showed the group that she shot with the 22s, and I went, okay,
she shot very well, actually.
Given that whilst we joke about never being in the office, we all do have to work in the office. So Leanne Romans in our office organises this Women on Target event, and it's a fantastic job.
She must be congratulated. It's an awesome event.
There you go. You hear that, Leanne?
Yes.
A bit coming up, so that sort of rounds up the year, I think. Unless you gentlemen can think of anything else we missed. There probably is stuff we missed. It was a big year.
It's been a big year. It's been a great year.
Yeah, so that sort of rounds out the year in many words or less. A fair bit to get through. I'm sure we missed a fair bit of stuff. It's just been, you say it every year and it sounds like a cliche, but it has been a really big year. We've had a lot on our plate. I think we've achieved a lot. We've won a lot. We've lost a few, but that's the way it goes. We keep going and getting stronger. A bit of a negative members will have seen, and there's been emails go out about a brouhaha between SSAA Queensland and the national body. The point for us to stress in all of that is that has no impact whatsoever on what SSAA Victoria does and how we service our members and how we service shooters and hunters in Victoria. It's seriously beyond me drafting some communications and putting them up on the Facebook page. That's about the only time it takes up at State Office for discussion. It's not an issue for us, and our members need to be confident that hopefully it gets sorted out for the benefit of everyone. We remain firmly committed to being part of a strong national association that in our view has been really well led. So won't go on about it anymore because it doesn't deserve any more than that.
No, there was a lot of alarm in the community. A lot of our members are members of the associations, etc. And of course, this minute the communications go out, the phone starts ringing, and the text messages and emails start from friends and associates, etc. And it's the same story as you just said. It doesn't affect you.
Doesn't affect us. Yeah, it really doesn't. Something else we're doing Monday night. We're kicking off a project in Walhalla, up in the hills in Gippsland.
Yes, so that's sort of potentially a pilot program that's potentially will come under the CPM program. I don't know if Darryl wants to talk about CPM before the end of this, but it's basically the deer are having an impact on some of the cultural heritage in Walhalla. Some of the traditional rock walls that are there have been damaged.
It's part of the Victorian Goldfields has a UNESCO World Heritage bid in that's looking really promising, and Walhalla is a critical part of that because it's pretty well the only gold rush town in the world that's intact. You know, you go to San Francisco, it's changed a bit since the gold rush.
Walhalla hasn't.
Walhalla
not much anyway.
It really hasn't, which is unique. Those stone walls that were made by the Cornish miners back in the gold rush are intact, but are less intact thanks to Samba deer.
Yeah. So we're doing an initial assessment to ascertain sort of how many deer are in the area, and then work out some operational plans on how we're going to tackle that. And ultimately, we're hoping this might come into the Hunters for the Hungry program as well, so we can do a bit of a pilot for that. And if any animals that are taken, we can actually get into that as well. But step by step. A control program that's actually looks at the issue, looks at the damage, comes up with a plan, how we're going to mitigate it, and then we'll continue to monitor it at the end to make sure that we're achieving the objectives that we want to do.
Why don't we just do a letter writing campaign and say that the government should call them pests? Wouldn't that stop the deer?
I thought we could just go and call them pests.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't understand.
I had that very conversation. I was at a land care meeting in Leongatha just on the weekend, and that was one of the things that came up. A person was having some issues with deer, and his sort of solution to the whole thing was they need to be declared a pest. And when I asked how would that result in sort of dead deer, he couldn't answer it and had no idea. But that seems to be the simple solution that people want. We're more about actual practical solutions and getting on the ground, and where they are having an impact, we'll get in there and we'll sort it out.
Yeah, hopefully kill enough of them so that they're not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Happy with that?
Happy with that.
I think we're all happy with that.
So it's not just shooting deer for the sake of shooting deer. It's a control program. We'll go and assess the problem. We'll come up with a solution and go from there.
And it's a demonstration, I suppose, not why we're doing it, but it is a demonstration of that nuanced approach we take, the hunters take as subject matter experts in this. It's whilst we don't buy into this deer are pests, we need to kill them.
Kill them all.
There are areas where deer are having significant impacts that need to be addressed, and we have a role to play in that.
Absolutely. And that's the important thing, that people do understand the nuance, and that's where we sort of try and get that information out. And that's where our friends at the Invasive Species Council just want to have simplistic sort of ideas and put out the jargon and the rhetoric on, they're a pest and they're feral and all this rubbish and stuff.
Remove feral deer from the feral landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but we're evidence-based, and as I say, we want overall deer management in this state, and control is a part of that where it's needed. But extrapolating out where you're having major impacts in a localised area across the entire landscape is just incorrect.
Well, it doesn't serve local communities well. It doesn't serve people like the people in Walhalla well. Walhalla's got a massive tourist economy. There's 100,000 tourists go through the place every year. It's really important that they protect that for that small community. And pushing some nonsense ideological barrow as a solution to those people doesn't help them at all.
No.
Not that I'm passionate about this stuff, but
Little. Just
all right, I think that pretty well winds us up. We've got hopefully not too many more events this year, although we will be up in Walhalla flying drones around
Monday night,
looking at deer on Monday night. Next year we've got a fair bit planned. We've got quite a few events inside and outside of Parliament House, a shot expo in Sydney in August that some people from State Office have been involved in here in Victoria and helping them get that up and running. A fair bit planned for next year, so onward and upward for 2026. Any special Christmas wishes? What are you hoping Santa brings you, gentlemen?
Yellowfin tuna.
A yellowfin tuna. Like, do you want it swimming in the water and chasing your bait? Is that? Or,
Absolutely. Yes,
or you just want Santa to go to the fish market in Box Hill?
No, I want to get out and do some fishing and, hopefully do all right. So.
Well, I'm a duck hunter, so Christmas fair doesn't start until the third Wednesday in March. So I've got to wait a little bit for my Christmas. So What do I wish for Christmas? The full length duck season, of course, with a manageable bag limit. How about that?
Yeah, I think you might get your Christmas wish, Daryl.
Let's hope. Can't wait for Christmas in March.
What about you, Baz? What are you after for Christmas?
Oh, look, I'll settle for a 15-inch hoggy.
Over Christmas?
Not over Christmas.
Ooh,
not over Christmas.
I thought they were bigger than that. That's quite small.
I'll settle for a rain check on a 15-inch hoggy.
15 inches. It's quite a small hoggy. I know they were little, but I thought they were bigger than that.
Very good, Daryl.
We don't measure ducks. We just eat them.
Oh, well, that's good too.
Let's start measuring them.
All right, looks like we've got to that awkward moment now after that.
Maybe you can develop a scoring system for
I'm going to.
for ducks,
I'll work on that next year's project.
Okay, and I'm sure you'll score higher than Robbie does.
Leave Robbie out of this.
Robbie will love being in this. All right. Well, everyone, like I said, barring something very significant and unforeseen, hope everybody has a fantastic, overall a safe Christmas and New Year period. And thanks everyone for the support during 2025, and hope to see as many of you as we can in 2026.
Thanks for the chat, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you.